This is a strong person of interest. He matches the description of the identification we've been looking for. He's also in possession of several items that we believe will connect him to this incident.
Police have now apprehended a man by the name of Luigi Mangione in connection with the assassination of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. He is the person of interest they were looking for, and they have noted that there are several elements of evidence indicating that he is in fact the individual who opened fire and assassinated the CEO in the early morning hours last Wednesday. Now, here's why police think that Mangione might be the killer here. According or among the lines in the 2-page document found on strong person of interest, Luigi Mangione, are now the following 2 quotes. Quote, "These parasites had it coming," end quote, and "I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done." A police official who had seen the document told CNN. In the note, Mangione says he acted alone and that he was self-funded, and there's a reason to believe he was self-funded. You look into his biography and he was not someone living in poverty by any means. We'll get to that in just a minute. Now, he also had a gun along with a suppressor similar to the one used in the assassination, as well as multiple fake IDs. The suspect, if you guys can recall, had checked into a hostel in New York City using a fake ID. Police believe that the gun was a so-called ghost gun, meaning that it could have been 3D printed. As for the fake IDs, in Altoona, Luigi Mangione was found with a fake New Jersey driver's license bearing the name Mark Rosario and an address in Maplewood, an affluent suburb of Newark, a senior law enforcement official said. The official said the same name and address were used by the man believed to be the shooter when he checked into a hostel in Manhattan in November. Now, Mangione was apparently eating at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania when an employee of said restaurant recognized him and called the police. Now, soon after Thompson was assassinated, the New York City Police Department released his photo, which most of you have likely already seen, in the hopes that citizens would help identify the shooter. This was actually one of the mistakes he made because he briefly took his mask down. Some say to flirt with the person at the front desk of this hostel. Though it's hard to credit the break in the case to any one moment or piece of evidence, Joseph Kenney, the New York Police Department's chief of detectives, said that if he had to, it would be the release of that photograph to the media. So that basically that led to his capture.
Yeah, so super interesting case here. First of all, I'm gonna assume it's him because his manifesto was with him, so pretty clear. So second of all, let's talk about some of the negatives here, which are significant. First of all, he believes in violence already. Hate it, can't stand it, definitely the wrong direction, okay, in my opinion. Number 2, he used the word parasites to describe his enemies. Giant red flag. So having been called a parasite a couple of times recently in debates, it's concerning. So guys, stop using dehumanizing language against anyone else on whichever side you think is the opposite of you, right? So whether it's Israel, Palestine, whether it's right wing, left wing, etc., we've got to stop calling each other insects, bugs, parasites, etc., etc. This is terrible. So him shooting the CEO, obviously horrific, and I condemn it, whatever's beyond 100%, okay? So now when you start looking into some of the things that he said, it gets interesting. So I think, so yeah, he agreed with Tucker Carlson and
he was a fan of Elon Musk. He agreed with Tucker Carlson. People immediately jump in the direction of like, let's make this a partisan issue. It's not a partisan issue. Americans across the political spectrum are unhappy with how health insurance and healthcare is carried out in this country. So I want to be clear about that. And anyone who's immediately distracting from what the heart of this issue is to make it a partisan argument is ridiculous, okay?
But Anna,
that's not to say that I am justifying what this man did. Violence is not the answer here and is not going to reform our healthcare system, which we do desperately need.
But that's the point I was going to, which is that it's not that we shouldn't discuss his partisanship. It's that his partisanship is unclear, and that is what's so interesting about this moment. That he could think, hey, I follow Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, but think that our privatized healthcare system is so outrageous and atrocious that he murdered the CEO of one of the privatized health insurance companies. That is amazing and fascinating. And so you don't have to agree with it, and you don't have to agree with whoever he follows or his policy of choice, whatever that might be, to find that moment in politics interesting. So, and what has become the reaction, which we're going to talk more about later in the show as well, is also interesting because tons of right-wing leaders came out and said, what a despicable guy, and he makes no good point about our system, et cetera. And right-wing followers of theirs have rebelled and said, no. I mean, we don't agree with what he did, but he makes a terrific point about this healthcare system. So there is an uprising here kind of against any kind of established system, whether it is the establishment as we know it or propaganda outlets, including right-wing propaganda outlets. And there's a rebellion that is a part of the country. This is an unfortunate part of that rebellion in that this is taking it in the wrong direction because it involves violence and that guy had kids, et cetera. This is not the right way to go. But the fact that the country is now in mass rebelling against corporate rule is a fascinating moment here. One last quick thing about the partisanship. Look, you can look at the list of books you read and go, okay, I hate those people, et cetera. But then you notice, oh, Lorax is on the list. Am I supposed to hate Dr. Zeus? Right? Don't worry about where the ideas came from other than that, hey, go do violence. That's an idea that's problematic, right? But every other idea should be discussed, and not because somebody did a shooting or because somebody did a shooting, we shouldn't shut down the conversation. We need to have that conversation either way.
Yeah, and look, the point that I want to make is I totally empathize with people who didn't shed a tear for the CEO. I think that's different from cheering on or wanting vigilante justice to be part of the solution to a broken healthcare system, because vigilantism will very, very quickly devolve into something that will very likely victimize the very people who are calling for it. So for instance, the justification that you hear time and time again, I emphasize with people who are upset at UnitedHealthcare or our healthcare system in general, or this particular CEO in general, considering the 32 to 33% denial rate at this health insurance company when it came to legitimate claims. And that was based on analysis by our own federal government, by the way.
Another analysis had it at 32%. Yeah. So they're denying a third of all claims,
That's insane.
Which is monstrous.
That's insane and unacceptable. So I totally agree with that. But look, my fear is when you start making justifications for vigilante violence, consider, there are people we disagree with who have their own thoughts and would like to carry out vigilante violence, and they justify it by saying, well, that person deserved to die because they were killing innocent people. Perfect example is what happened to George Tiller, who was one of the few late-term abortion doctors in Kansas, and was gunned down by an anti-abortion extremist who believed that, well, this is a doctor, a physician who's killing innocent babies.
Hey, look, I don't even understand that. That's not a conversation that's legitimate, right?
No, it doesn't reform anything. It doesn't change anything.
So I remember after 2008 economic crash, lots of countries are boiling over in rage, including Greece, and they went to go shoot some bankers. And what did they do? They shot a teller and killed this innocent working person and didn't shoot any of the CEOs, the bankers, et cetera. And if they had, that wouldn't have made it any better. You have to fix the underlying system. Just randomly shooting different actors in that system doesn't do you any good. So, but look, those two things are different, and I want to be super clear about that. The violence is a terrible idea as a matter of any kind of process. It should not include violence, right? But that is totally distinct from what is the violence about? What is the issue at hand here, right? So, because if you do the logical extension of one of the positions here and you go, oh, okay, since he shot the CEO, we should not have a conversation about privatized healthcare right now because that only helps the shooter or whatever, blah, 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 blah. Well, okay, under that logic, if somebody in the, God forbid, in the defense industries gets shot, does that mean we can never discuss defense? We can never discuss foreign policy. We can never discuss anything. No, that's absurd. You can still have a conversation about it, you should. And as I said in last week's show, 76,000 people die every year because of our privatized healthcare system. They don't have health insurance. So are we allowed to talk about other deaths? Are we also allowed to talk about those 76,000 people who are dead every year?
I'm gonna say it right now, okay? For any gatekeepers out there who wanna gatekeep any conversation at any given time, we're gonna have any goddamn conversation we want at any goddamn time we wanna have it. So if we wanna talk about the necessary reforms to our healthcare system right now, following the assassination of an executive for a healthcare company, yeah, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it right now, and I don't care if people get offended by that. Now is the time to do it.
Yeah, 100%, and the whole country's asking for it. So by all means, for God's sake, universal healthcare, countries that have it have half the price, half the cost that we do. Why are we paying twice as much? Where's that money going? And it's going into this insane industry that profits off of all of our deaths. And when I say all of our deaths, it's not just those 76,000 according to studies that die every year because they don't have health insurance. It's also because on average, we live 4 years less than countries with universal healthcare. So that's killing all of us 4 years earlier than we would have died if we lived in a developed nation that has universal healthcare. We need to have that conversation now about the country.
Absolutely. Just a few more details that we're learning, and of course, this is a developing story. So, Mangione was arrested on firearm charges in Pennsylvania, and if he is in fact the killer, if that is proven, it would mark the end of a 5-day manhunt. It did take some time to find him. Over the weekend, there was an image of the assassin in a taxi cab that was also released. And police also found a backpack that they believe the shooter left behind, which contained both fake money from the Monopoly board game as well as a jacket. So here's a photo of the backpack that they found. Now, as far as the suspect here, he's 26 years old. And he received a bachelor's and master's degree in engineering from the University of Pennsylvania. A Goodreads profile likely belonging to him wrote this in a review of the Unabomber's manifesto. Quote, "It's easy to quickly and thoughtlessly write this off as a manifesto of a lunatic in order to avoid facing some of the uncomfortable problems it identifies. But it's simply impossible to ignore how prescient many of his predictions about modern society turned out." He was a violent individual, rightfully imprisoned, who maimed innocent people, while these actions tend to be characterized as those of a crazy Luddite. However, they are more accurately seen as those of an extreme political revolutionary. In his review, Mangione also wrote thoughts someone else had shared about the Unabomber in a Reddit thread online, quoting a commenter who had described, I can never say this guy's Kaczynski's act as war and revolution, saying that he had the balls to recognize that peaceful protest has gotten us absolutely nowhere, and that violence never solved anything. In a statement uttered by cowards, a statement uttered by cowards and predators.
Yeah, so again, his ode to violence is totally wrong. Violence almost always goes in the wrong direction, almost always helps authoritarian figures who would actually prop up the very worst instincts of society. So going in that direction is nonsensical. Having said that, so what you're all supposed to say in media when there's a killer like this is, oh, he's crazy, he's an idiot, he's this, that, the other thing. No, look, whether he's quote unquote crazy is something that the law will have to decide. But look, I'm afraid that I'm gonna get yelled at for saying this, but to Anna's point, we're gonna say whatever makes sense. He's unfortunately a smart guy, okay? He's an engineer, he went to Penn, which is an Ivy League school. I read some of his writings. Obviously, I don't agree with any of the calls for violence, etc. And obviously, I don't agree with some of the right-wing things that he writes. But having said that, he's not a dumb guy. He's not just like, oh my God, these thoughts don't make any sense, and they're a mishmash and they're not logically connected. No, they're logically connected, and there are real issues that he's pointing out. But my God, this is the worst way to handle legitimate issues, because one of the things I'm worried about is, so for example, he talks about a disconnect that we have in modern society. And he talks about it in the context of Japan, for example. And he says things, if we're being honest, that are similar to stuff that I'll say that I've said on this show, right? Hey, we need more human interaction. We need more personal interaction. And by the way, shooting people is the worst possible way you can get more human interaction. But anyway, so you separate out the ideas, and you don't have to give any legitimacy to any or ownership to those ideas to him, right? But these are ideas that exist in the world and should be discussed, and most importantly about healthcare in this case. but he should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We cannot let this get out of control. If people start shooting one another, it's going to be an epic disaster. But we also need to get our healthcare under control. And right now, I'm gratified to see both the right, the left wing, and the independents, and everyone across the political spectrum going, no, we didn't fix this. I don't know if the Democrats are pretending that we fixed it and the Republicans are pretending they have a concept of a plan to fix it in another decade, right? But the reality is we didn't fix this at all, and this healthcare system is killing us for profit, and that's inarguable. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.